Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inside Unreal, a show where we learn, grow, learn, grow, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I am your host, Dan Hutnick, and I am joined by a few folks from Another Dimension Games who have graciously agreed to join us and share a method of how you can support runtime mods in UE. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and get them introduced, starting with Sid. How you doing, Sid?
Hey guys, nice to meet everybody. I'm Sid. A couple of years ago, I left a pretty lucrative job at big tech at Facebook to dedicate my life to making games, my favorite passion in the entire world. So I have learned UE5. I founded a company, Another Dimension Games, and today we're going to show you a lot of cool stuff about how you can make your own games moddable.
Yeah, I got a sneak peek before the show, and I love it, and I think you guys are in for a treat here. And we also have Shannon. How are you doing, Shannon?
I'm good. Thanks, Dan. I'm Shannon. I'm a dev turned UI UX designer, as old as time. I'm the art director at Another Dimension Games. I'm here to help Sid make good UI and UX decisions. But yeah, I'll be helping present some of the UI mods that we implemented. It'll be a fun time.
Perfect. Well, I know the title is fairly self-descriptive, but let's get like a little bit deeper into here. So, supporting runtime mods in UE5, a complete pipeline. Give folks before we jump in just like a kind of quick brief as to what we're going to be talking about here today.
So some of the greatest games of all time support user-generated content or mods. The classic example is Skyrim. That game has lived on for decades beyond its release because of an active and dedicated modding community, right? So inside this talk, we're going to show you like Skyrim was made on a totally different engine. And it's not immediately obvious that you can do all of that same stuff in UE5. We're going to show you pretty much, and I will open this for you guys later. I'm going to show you the top downloaded mods on Skyrim, and I'm going to show you that pretty much in this demo, we implemented nearly all of them. So we're going to drag and drop mod files into our game folder. We're going to have them work at runtime.
Amazing. Well, like I said at the beginning, we have a lot to cover here, so I don't want to dilly-dally too much. But before we do jump in, if you have any questions for the team here about supporting runtime mods in UE5, please leave them in the chat. Put in brackets question followed by your question, and we will gather as many of them as we can throughout the show and throw them at these fine folks whenever we have a moment. Probably take most of those towards the end. Please keep in mind that these questions are and should be for supporting runtime mods in UE5. If you have any questions that are beyond that, any general ecosystem questions, engine questions, any sort of thing like that, please head over to the EDC, our Epic developer community, where we have our forums, we have tutorials from both Epic staff and community alike. We have documentation, a ton of resources over there. Please head over there if you have any other, kind of broader questions. But anything supporting runtime mods in UE5, leave them here, and we will gather them up. So, with that, I think we can jump in. You ready?
Awesome. Let's go. So, and I just want to double check: is my window open here?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, let's dive in. So what I'm looking at here is my mods folder, and this is going to be our default, right? So right now, no mods are installed, and we're just going to give you a dry run, a cold open of what does the game look like without any mods installed. So this is just a demo. So this release version 1.13 is kind of, if you download the game on Steam, this is essentially what you'd get. Let's open it up here, and let me remember to switch so you guys get audio. Give me a second here. Yeah, do you hear the Lyra default music?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Okay, so we're just going to take a brief tour through this program and see a few things. Let's get rid of screen messages for now, just so it doesn't interfere with us. Okay, we're looking at a very basic character creator. This is just for the sake of demo. But what we've got here are basic metahumans, right? Basic features you'd expect from a character creator. You can swap the race, you can swap the general head look, right? The one thing I want you guys to pay attention to, right? This is a released game. There are only 3 hair options. Okay.
There's
Just
no
one thing
greater
to take
sin.
note. There are 3 hair options by default. Give me 1 sec to change a slight detail on the stream. I'm going to exit out of here and come back. So give me 1 sec. Okay, now back at the main menu. That was the character creator, 3 hair options. Next, I'm going to show you a demo level with some basic non-modded functionality. Okay. And what I'm going to ask you guys to pay attention to here is just the basic state of the game. Let's look at how it behaves when it's not modded, okay? So we are this blue soldier looking guy, right? A human soldier. We have a pistol in our first weapon slot, right? Standard Lyra pistol, nothing too impressive here, right? Our ally is also a default soldier guy. And as we walk up to this NPC here, let's see what she has to say when we interact with her. She has boring default dialogue, and she's going to need help through modding. And I think we can oblige her. Okay. And then everything else is just super basic. Just one quick thing to pay attention to. Notice the UI. There are no UI elements other than the default Lyra health bar and the gun UI in the bottom right corner. Okay. And then guns behave as normal. That's not what this demo is really about. I'll try to jump out here. And let me switch some details on our stream so we can start getting mods in. Share screen, cool. Now I'm going to quit out of this game. And let's kill it. And just double checking, Dan. Do you see my folder, my Windows folder? Perfect. Okay, so that was just a dry run of what the game looks like when we don't have any mods in. Now let's turn on some mods and see what happens. So just like before, right? This is our mods, essentially our mods folder, right? It's all our pack files. I'm going to take some mods that I pre-cooked, and we're going to teach you how to cook these yourself later. And I'm just going to copy paste them in here. And let's see how the game changes. Once again, remember, this represents release version 1.13, represents a game that your customers, your users are going to get on their machine after they download it from Steam or Epic Games or wherever, right? Whatever platform you sell on. So let's go see. We just dragged and dropped in some files, and hopefully, great. So already you'll notice some changes have hopped in. And give me 1 second. Let me get you guys some sound here. Okay, so if you notice on the left, a new mod screen has popped up, and it's listing what we've got installed. So there's a couple of things. We're going to go through all the features soon. You'll notice we have a UI element in the top left as well, and you'll notice there's a typo. We'll show you how you can fix that in real time a little bit later. Let's start by jumping into the character creator. And if you remember, or if you rewind the video, you'll remember that there were only 3 hairstyles for this girl, right? By just dragging and dropping a mod folder in, we've added a completely new hairstyle. It's a completely working groom with a completely working binding, and it's happening at runtime. There wasn't some crazy hitch. And it'll work on any kind of face, right? These are just preset metahumans. You get the general idea, right? We can add any piece of customization to this. We'll show you how it works later. I am going to switch my stream one more time, and I'll show you how the base game has changed. So give me a quick second. So we're going to kill this. We're going to jump back into the game. And let me show you what else we can do just by dragging and dropping a few files. So let me get you the application. Now you should have sound here. Let's hit play. Let's go back into our default level and see how it's changed. And once again, let's turn off screen messages just so it doesn't get in our way here. Okay, great. So one big change, right? The UI has completely changed. All of these quest elements and markers are working as I get near to her and farther away from her. It's actually updating in real time. We are no longer a default human. We're no longer a blue soldier guy. We're now a chunky alien, right? With his own unique charm. And our default weapon is no longer the pistol in slot 1. It is now this sci-fi M4 that has a little bit of clipping, but you get the idea, right? If you look in first person mode, you can kind of see it. So we have a new, entirely new weapon, entirely new character mesh. We have a working quest manager UI, right? We got our hair to work, right? And last but not least, when we go up to this NPC and we talk to her, let's see what she has to say.
Soldier, look up the stairs. The last of the alien scum are concentrated in the city center ahead. One final push, and we force their unconditional surrender, or their extinction.
Okay, and it's not only just a single line of dialogue replacement. We can have totally branching dialogue logic, and we'll show you and even possibly change it in real time through writing our mod.
There's no more time for what ifs.
So I don't want to kill aliens. She's obviously pissed about that. She's saying you're going to kill the aliens anyway. In a real reactive RPG, we should add a lot more options than just understood. We'll show you how to do that. But you get the general sense, right? The dialogue has completely changed. The meshes have completely changed. Logic has completely changed. And we'll show you how Unreal Engine 5 makes that super easy to do. So give me 1 second to switch the stream out, and we're going to start diving into some code and teaching you guys how you can do this yourself. So.
I know that it takes a bit of back end prep and stuff that we're going to cover during the show today, but the simple act of seeing that drag and drop just work is always awesome.
Feel the same way. All right, so now we're going to go dive into the UE5 project itself, and we'll get hands-on with some code. And shouldn't take too long.
I'll use this as a quick reminder for folks. If you have any questions for the team about specifically supporting runtime mods in UE5, please leave them in the chat. Put in brackets question followed by your question, and we will gather them up and toss them to these folks as we go throughout the show. If you have any other questions pertaining anything else, engine, ecosystem, any sort of thing like that, please head over to the Epic developer community, where you can find our tutorials, forums, documentation, and plenty of other resources.
Cool. So, do you see my editor window right now?
Yes.
Cool. So what we're going to start with is the simplest mod in this whole pipeline, which is going to be the mod list. And just as a reminder, that's going to be this little bar on the side of our screen right here that displays all the currently active mods. And Shannon's going to go explain how we got that to work.
Yeah, so uses the game feature data asset. It's called mod list. And the two main things about this, could you bring the window down? Yeah. Yeah, our game feature actions here. First one is add widget. Second one is data registry. We'll go through them one at a time. The add widget one, what it's doing is, you specify the layout. Here it's W shooter HUD layout. This is the default Lyra HUD layout that uses the UI extension points. So you could basically slot in any custom widgets into any of these as long as you define them. Here we're using the left side touch inputs for our mod list, which you can see in the slot ID. So the slot ID, left side touch inputs, there. The widget class is our custom blueprint. If you open that up, mod list view, it's very simple. The box with the list widget in it. This list widget, it's getting the data from a data registry flipping through it and printing it out. So this data registry, that was actually one of the actions here, DR mod list. What this is doing, it's searching for data sources with that smod structure. It's a really simple one. It just has a string in it. And these data sources live in each mod. So you see we have 5 of them. We can jump into one of them really quick. So the sci-fi M4 mod, this mod list entry is the data registry source. Simple string, sci-fi M4. And what DR mod list will do, oh yes, and then here in the asset, we are adding a data registry source to mod list data registry, which is defined in DR mod list right there. That mod list entry is the source that lives in the mod. That one. Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, with this, you could use the layouts UI extension points, build any kind of moddable UI and slot it in that way. There's a third point about, this mod in particular uses a shared struct that lives in the base game. But Sid will go over another option that you can use besides this way that we implemented it.
Yeah. So you can actually eliminate this dependency entirely by doing something a little bit smarter. But we really wanted to show off this data registry paradigm because it's super useful in constructing any kind of mod you can think of given the correct data model. But yeah, just to recap, right? This mod list mod is itself a game feature plugin. That is a plugin that you can enable in UE5. It's like first party. If you're using Lyra, it comes straight out of the box. Game feature plugins have game feature data that define these things that Shannon just went into, right? And now our structure for mods publishing their names. So we had Sci-Fi M4 publish its name as Sci-Fi M4 as a string and relying on this data structure. You don't actually need to do that. So a slightly more clever way to do this exact same behavior is to have a gameplay tag and subtag setup, right? So if we just set our subtags were like lyra.mods.sci-fi-m4, every single game feature plugin and any plugin in general can publish its own config/tags folder, right? So if you published a tag underneath that parent, so for example, lyra.mods.sci-fi-m4, lyra.mods.questmanager, et cetera, you wouldn't need to read from this shared data structure. You could treat the presence of a tag as the presence of the mod itself. Yeah. So that would be one way you could eliminate this, because this requires support from the base game, which you might not necessarily want to do to create a mod list that's generic. But yeah, just a slight little architectural thing to keep note of. For our case, we are absolutely using a shared data registry. The data registry is published, but it doesn't exist in the base game. The data registry is literally published by our mod list mod. And then other mods, which don't depend on mod list at all, they just depend on the mod list data registry's name. They can find the correct data registry at runtime, seed it with the data, and you get the behavior that you see here. Cool. Okay. So briefly, before I jump into how the mesh replacement things work and the quest manager and all that other stuff, are there any like burning questions that people have? Because this is pretty foundational to how the whole thing is set up.
We have a couple of general questions. One comment from chat here that I thought might be worth sharing is I came from modding games and it taught me a lot of what I needed to be comfortable with in Unreal very quickly. So learning how to open that up to more players, opening that up to my players brings that full circle. Thanks, Dan, and incredible guests. So already a lot of support here for that.
Very cool. Cool. So it sounds like people are following along. Yeah, it's pretty simple. And now into mesh replacement. So how does that stuff work? So with game feature actions and game feature plugins, we're not limited to out of the box. We're not just limited to adding widgets and adding data registry entries, right? So let's dive into the Sci-Fi M4 mod and figure out how I got that gun into our players' hands, right? So once again, the core of a game feature plugin is going to be its game feature data. This is going to tell the game how the game feature should behave as it's loaded, right? Now we're going to notice there's a new action here called add component, right? And that game feature action is pretty simple. On every single Lyra pawn, as the Lyra pawn enters the asset manager, this game feature plugin is going to hook in and inject a little piece of data. That little piece of data is going to be our pawn component. I've written a very, very simple pawn component here, and let's just dive into it real quick. This is almost exactly the same logic as the Lyra pickup, right? When you walk over one of those gun pickups and pick up a weapon. So all it does is when this component begins play, right, we're going to wait until the overarching experience is ready, and we're going to do a lot of checks and some stuff. And if everything is valid, we are going to remove the pistol from the weapon slot, and we are going to add in our newly defined weapon, which is our M4 rifle right here. Now, one thing I'd like to call out is just for the sake of this demo, we packed the Sci-Fi M4 meshes and skeletons and all that stuff into the base game, but you can absolutely pack this all of this mesh content, right? The actual rifle itself, the actual skeletal meshes and materials, you could pack them into the mod content just fine. This is just for the sake of demo. But yeah, if you want to add new meshes and anything, you can put it in the house. Okay, I might have. Yeah. Okay. So give me 1 second. I'm going to restart.
No worries. While you're rebooting, are you cool to take a question or two?
Sure.
Awesome. We had a couple here. This one's like a kind of a quick general one. It said, would documenting out art pipeline help modders, in your opinion?
Like documenting out an art pipeline?
Yeah, for incorporating the mods within the project.
I'm not sure what you mean. So by art pipeline, do you mean how you get core art assets into your game?
Yeah, I would assume it's like just kind of like a general documenting the process of making art so that way it can then be incorporated directly into the game that you're intending to mod, right? Because at least in a lot of instances, there's a lot of back and forth between like DCCs and things like that in order to create the art and make sure that it all works. So they're basically asking like, would you recommend for your game kind of documenting that process for your audience so that way they have that resource available?
Yes. So two things on that. I think we're going to document this entire process on mod.io one day, so everyone's aware of this, even just beyond the bounds of the show. I think that documenting pipelines is always good, regardless of whether it's art or programming or anything. So yes, please add more documentation. And then the last little bit is, in terms of pipeline, we do something cool with pipelines and plugins, actually. So all of our armor is actually just included in as a plugin itself. It's a game feature plugin, right? And so we can we don't need to share the entire source code of the game with our artists, right? We just need to share this little plugin. The artists toss in their stuff as if they're just building a mod. And when we load it into the core game, you can show any outfit you want. And not all developers have to download all the art assets either to develop, right? That's why this modular sort of behavior is super, super useful. So yeah, great question. Let's continue diving into the Sci-Fi M4, how it works. So all we were doing, right? I was just showing you the pawn component. So it's really, really simple, right? Simple logic. So at runtime, it's hooked in via the game feature plugin, and it's just going to swap the weapon, right? And you could have the art wherever you want it. And just ignore that we did some easy stuff for the demo. Okay, great. So that is entirely how this gun swap works, and you can extend it however you want. You want custom Niagara particle effects? You can absolutely do that. You have to be careful with your shaders, but you can absolutely do it. You want custom ability logic? You can do it. We're going to show you a little bit of how. But yeah, this is one of the most common mods. You can swap any gun in the game. And let's keep going and show you how we swap the alien next. And this is something trivial that you can do yourself in a few minutes off of the base Lyra game. Okay, so let's dive into the mod itself. And just like before, this is called Cosmetic Swap Mod. This one's even simpler than the mesh swap. Whenever we're making a mod, the first thing we look at is the game feature data. And this second one is just publishing its name. This first one is what I want you to pay attention to. We are adding an entry into the cosmetic data registry, which is part of our base game. Cosmetic data registry is very, very simple, right? It's literally a name and a, I'm about to, maybe? Unfortunate, sorry.
Oh no.
We'll come back.
Here's another quick question. Do modders need custom Unreal Engine version SDK to cook the mods, or can they use the pre-built engine from the Epic launcher?
Base engine. I haven't modified the core engine, and you can just use the base UAT tool that we use for cooking. It'll work out of the box. And one more little side note: I'm not an expert on cooking. I'm going to do a live cook for you guys, so you'll see the command and you'll see how simple it is. I believe like 1 or 2 weeks ago, Dan hosted someone who was doing a pretty good like pack cooking demo. And if you want more information, you can dive into that talk. But yeah, just to recap, default Unreal Engine out of the box, no mods, no modifications. It'll work for this type of code. Okay, so let's just reopen our asset editors. And okay, so this is super simple, right? It's literally just adding a piece of data, right? The piece of data is referring to a cosmetic. The way that Lyra draws your characters in the first place, this is just a small modification off of Lyra, but this is how it works on your machines when you download the default version of Lyra, is it uses this simple tool called Cosmetic Picker, which is added to your pawn at game start via game feature plugins. And it's so simple, right? By default, it selects from a list of cosmetic options. Those cosmetic options look something like this, right? So you can have whatever kind of, you can have metahumans, you can have UE5 models, you can have UE4 models. They're going to get real-time retargeted. And there's a character part system, again, default under the hood, that assembles those characters together, okay? And all we've done is we've reused that data registry pattern and paradigm that we talked about before, right? We've added a new data, registry, and we're side loading it, right? Picking a random element from that. We're picking a random element for the sake of demo. You could pick a little more cleverly as you do it. But we're adding the character parts from whatever we have in our data registry. So if you had like 10 elements, it would randomly pick one of these various cosmetics that we've set up for you guys, right? So you can see how that works trivially at runtime without any hard dependencies. Last little bit that I want to call out, these cosmetics, once again, we put them in the base game just for the ease of demo. You can absolutely have all of these art assets and materials and shaders and whatever you want living in your mod itself. The only thing you have to consider when you do that is how are my shaders going to behave? Are they going to need to be compiled on the fly? Am I going to need to bundle a PSO cache? Those questions we'll answer later. But that's just one thing you have to be concerned about. Okay,
Another
cool.
real quick question, if you're cool with it, is we've mentioned Lyra integration many different times here, and one of the questions we had is there a way to do this without Lyra? And I would say the answer is yes. Lyra is used in this example just to make it simple, and because a lot of these systems are already kind of pre-built, if I'm not mistaken.
True. It makes it simple, and there's something so beautiful about using Lyra. Okay, here's so we're an indie game studio, right? And we use several pieces of content that have been developed on Fab by other talented developers, right? So I can't, straight out of the box, I can't give you this entire source code, right? Because it would require sharing assets that I don't have the rights to. So by using Lyra as a shared base, as this mod system grows, right? You absolutely don't need to use Lyra, but the benefit of using Lyra as a shared base, when we want to develop mods for this game, you don't need the entire Astral Saga source. You could use Lyra as a base, develop a mod inside base Lyra with a few little pieces of data, right? The data, not the implementation, and it would still work in Astral Saga. And that's insane. We're still working on proving that concept end to end, but it's the critical barrier between indies and AAAs, where they can probably share all of their content because they own all of it, and we are limited in how much source code we can share. All of that is to say, when you're trying to make mods for your first time, right? Lyra has all of the plugins you're going to need, like the core plugins out of the box, right? So you're not going to have to figure out, how do I enable game features? Right. Game features might be enabled by default. Yeah, but you're not gonna need to go through all of these and figure out which ones do I need, which ones do I not. Lyra is going to be correct by default to copy what we've done here, and then when you're making your own game, you can easily extend those concepts to bring in mods to whatever kind of system you're looking for. Okay, cool. So we just did mesh swaps. So mesh swaps are totally cool, but they're not that complicated, right? I think mesh swaps have happened in every single game. One of the coolest things that we developed, and what Shannon's going to talk about next, is how did we get this UI to work, right? How could a mod know all of these details about, like, the distance is updating in real time. All of these things are getting drawn on top of the screen. The compass is fully functional as I rotate my character, but the mod didn't know anything about the character. So how did it do that? We'll dive into that next.
Yeah, so it's all a mod. Here in our game feature data asset, we have adding a component. What this is doing, it's adding our manager mission to our game state, our library game state. This is a singleton class that lives in one instance in the whole game. What's cool about this is with that, we can integrate really complex stuff. So yeah, and here we're in the manager mission. So you could see, it's creating the widgets, it's drawing it on top of the game, adding markers for active quest givers. This is all in, I believe it's all the data registry. The markers, the quest dialogue, the branches, like all of that stuff lives inside this mod. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to find it, but there's a compass. Can you go back to your file explorer or your content drive?
Sure.
And go to user interface. Oh, components. Oh, quest. Sorry, components. It's outside of. Oh wait, no, you just found it. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. All good. The user interface. It's the compasser.
Yes, that one. Yeah. So this one, you go to the graph. This is the compass. It's drawing it, and you can see it at the bottom. It's taking the player controller and the player pawn data, and it's using that to calculate the distance from those markers in the registry and the direction that you're facing, all of that stuff. And it's updating real time. All of this complex logic can live in your mod. You can cook it and toss it into your game, which is
and
crazy.
Then quick shout outs to whoever developed the modular gameplay.
Yes.
All of that beautiful logic is thanks to whoever wrote this at Epic Games is absolutely goated, and you should definitely try to enable these features, these two plugins, modular gameplay, actors, and gameplay. It lets you. Your pawn for your game is probably customized and unique, right? But when we treat pawns in the abstract using modular elements like this, we can do cool, complex logic like what you just saw without having hard dependencies on your unique pawn, right? We can write for generic UE5 pawns, all the logic will work out, right? Because all pawns have their location, direction, facing, whatever. And because that logic is generic, it'll work in any game that sort of uses this framework.
I also wanted to do a quick shout out. If this looks familiar, it's on the Fab Store. This is the Ultimate Quest Manager by Tala Essenleichler. But yeah, we just ported it into this mod, and it worked pretty seamlessly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very, very cool. And so the last little bit, we're going to show you two little bits actually. I will briefly, the last mod we have to talk about is the dialogue bit. Okay, so again, you remember that Lyriel had basic dialogue. When we talked to her, she's going to say, she's going to have now voiced data and stuff, right? Let's show you how we actually ended up replacing that in a dialogue mod. So once again, this is going to be using the data registry pattern that we talked about, right? Whenever we look at them, whenever we it's going to crash. Oh, wait, maybe. Yeah, it's going to crash.
Oh, no.
No worries. I'll try to get back as soon as possible. Sorry, guys.
Too much stuff running simultaneously. While this is booting up, we did have another question here, which is, what are the limitations for mods that need to include code? Aren't there console cert concerns with downloadable code extensions? Might be a little beyond this, but go ahead.
No, that's absolutely in scope. So
right,
we can't include C++ currently. Because you need to like explicitly link the DLL. So I haven't done a lot of testing in trying to link in C++ logic. So that is already barred, and that gives you some degree of safety, right? However, any blueprint logic, right? We showed you some pretty complex blueprint logic that's getting linked in at runtime. All of that is easy to like inject and have running. If you want to protect your game from any of this happening, like you don't actually want mods and you don't want people to hack or whatever, two main ways, right? You can protect certain pieces of logic from executing via server authority in a multiplayer game, right? Another way is you can set your project settings in such a way where the data is actually encrypted and with the right settings of encryption plus how like the cooker settings are set up, like are you cooking ucast instead of pack files, you can prevent people from injecting logic into your game like this. But we want to do this because we think it's very, very cool. So we're keeping it open. And any blueprint logic can be added. And the limitation is right now, as of today, as far as I'm aware, you can't inject C++ code so far.
That's a consideration I hadn't really thought of, how like the C++ code would be a harder thing to implement, where you can achieve, with certain limitations, similar outcomes using blueprinting, which is interesting.
You could do it with C++. If someone wants to hack it with me, I am very down. So I think it would require like explicit linking of the DLL at runtime, which isn't handled. But we can actually dive into the game feature actions in a little bit, and we can start to figure out how that might be done. I believe I was showing off the dialogue mod, so let's get back in there.
Yes.
Okay, dope. So, okay, whenever we're trying to figure out how does our mod work, we're cooking it as a game feature plugin so that we don't have to worry about writing all this code to mount pack files and handle all of that complex stuff that you'll see in other mod demos. Okay, so we're going to go into our game feature data. This is our holy grail. And once again, it's our familiar friend, the data registry source. So we're adding to a core game data registry that is intended in our game. It's going to hold all the dialogue, right? Let's just take a quick look at what it looks like, right? So the key is a gameplay tag that sort of tells you it's the speaker is Lyrial. It's a dialogue line. The speaker is Lyrial, and it's in the demo level. And this is her starting line. And then just like that, we have another line for her as a follow-up, right? Let's go dive into the actual data that's been added. So this is just the runtime. So in our dialogue replacement, right, we're using the animated dialogue kit, which again, I believe it was free on Fab for quite a long time. You can do this yourself. If you like this data model, you can change the data model however you like to suit your purposes. This is pretty good for us, right? So we're hijacking the special start row tag. We're filling in the data, right? You can see the line that we added in. You can see all the various branches that we've added in. And, but I don't want to kill aliens jumps to line 1, which we've injected into Lyrial's set of dialogue lines. And just like this is trivial. I'll jump in. So like understood, I don't want to kill aliens. It's kind of lame for an RPG. Let's say we want to attack Lyrial instead. How would we do that? I refuse to kill aliens, prepare to die. And then we'll also jump to the finish line. And we'll see that if I save this, we should see that reflected instantly in the changes here.
There it is.
Okay, and then she's obviously not turning hostile because I didn't code that in. But if you wanted to do something like that, right, using this system, you can fire arbitrary events in the level via this event name parameter, right? That'll automatically hook in and work. So as long as the appropriately named event is contained inside your level, it'll fire. So like if we had a set hostile event, that would make her take out her gun and start shooting you. You get the general sense. So you can make any kind of RPG dialogue, and any kind of logic can fire as a result of your dialogue choices. And okay, the cool part is I changed it and it showed up in my game. It's not obvious because I'm acting as both the modder and the developer of the game right now. Eventually, right, the person who's writing this dialogue mod only needs access to the data model. they don't need the entire game source code, like I mentioned before. So when someone without technical or coding experience wants to write a complex RPG narrative system, they can just do it by filling in data, right? And that's the biggest win in our book, right? So you can ship this out to writers, and it's not too complicated to figure out how this works, right? It's branches and everything. You can author content and modify an existing game through nothing more than knowing the correct tag structure and adding in the data you want to add in. Awesome. So I'm going to stop this. Great. Okay. So given that, I will do a live cook right now, which might break. Hopefully it ends up working. But first, let's go back to the game really quick and show you. So now I'm wearing my modder hat. I'm acting as if I didn't develop this game. I don't have the whole source. I am just a modder who wants to add in some cool dialogue. So first, let's remember our baseline. I'm going to do it without sound just to make this easy. So one thing I want you to notice, there's a typo in the top left. And let me... Typo in the top left, right? It says Runtime instead of Runtime. Second thing, as we go into our level, and run up to Lyriel and see what she has to say. I don't want to kill aliens. I only can agree with her. I can't kill her, right? Can't kill her. So let's see if we can make, with these data changes that we made in the game. Oh God. All right, I'm just gonna kill this. All right, let's see if with the data changes we made in editor, right? And eventually this is gonna be a reduced set of the game, right? Can we cook this dialogue example mod with this replacement that I just made in real time for you guys to say, I refuse to kill aliens, prepare to die. Okay, that's going to be the key here. So let me show you how I set up the actual cook of a mod, and we'll go from there. Okay. So inside the source folder, this will be the shared project folder. This will be the set of source that you need to share with your modders. We'll come into our plugins and game features. And I am going to close the editor as well, because otherwise it'll interfere. And I'm going to start by moving out all the mods just so they don't interfere with this cook. Except dialogue example. I'll leave that in because that's what we're going to cook. That looks good to me.
While we're moving files around, there was a question here that was with regards back to the dialogue editor, and the gist of the question is how complicated or in depth could that dialogue editor get based off of like the mod support? Like what are the practical limitations there?
There aren't. So have you played Baldur's Gate 3? You could literally do everything in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, the other example that they gave was BioWare's Neverwinter Nights editor.
I love BioWare games. Neverwinter Nights is a classic. Even jumping forward, right? Baldur's Gate 3 is even more complicated. You could even do Baldur's Gate 3. So you could control camera state. You could even, we're going to expand on this later and hopefully release it out to you guys. But you could technically have that be level sequences instead of how we've done it right now, where it's like static and fixed. So you asked me about limitations on that system, particularly in the dialogue system. Right now, today, and what I've shown you in this demo, you could create Baldur's Gate 3 dialogue. It wouldn't be as good because you don't have animations and all that stuff. Tomorrow, or in the near future, we're going to integrate that with Level Sequencer so you can add sequences at runtime. And that is true Baldur's Gate 3 levels of dialogue complexity.
That's really cool.
So, what am I? I'm doing a live cook and praying to the demo gods that that is going to work. Okay, so I have set up my feature here. Let's refresh. Okay, so all I have is the dialogue mod inside the source folder, right? And let me just get the right command really quick. 1 sec. So this is going to be the right cook command. It's a little bit of, it's not that much of black magic. And once again, if you want to go deeper into cook commands, which I just hope they work, there's a Inside Unreal episode a week or two back that'll go into this. The big thing to note is like we cooked a base release version of this game. For our demo, we cooked version 1.13. And all of this is pointing to the dialogue game feature that we just went through. And it might cook, maybe.
I believe.
Shaders. Impulse.
Waiting for it to finish before I say
success.
Yeah. I was gonna say we did this before the show and it worked just fine, but I didn't want that to be the jinx that ended up ensuring that it crashed.
All good. Okay,
Beautiful.
Thank the demo gods. Okay, so I in our cook plugins, we told it to cook to a location, right? So it ends up cooking here. So I'm just gonna go to that location without. Who cares about directory structure? You can see that it cooked at 11:59. So I'm sure that's just the data I cooked. Copy this guy.
Well, 12 kilobytes. Really,
yeah, nice and compact.
Yeah.
Okay, so now in our packaged version of the game, right? This is what you get off of Steam or Epic Games. And you first we make a backup of this working one.
It's a good philosophy for pretty much anything you're doing. Make a backup, and probably make another one too, just in case.
And now we're gonna bring in the new content, and we're gonna launch this game. And I'm just gonna leave sound off. You guys know that we can add in sound if you want. Example mode loaded. And when we talk to her, there you go. Now we can refuse. And obviously we didn't hook up the hostility function like we talked about, but you could, right? It's already supported in the editor. And there we go. We cooked a mod in real time for you guys. It ended up working. How did the they kill the Cosmetic? All right, whatever. And that ended up working. I'm very happy with that. We can cook in real time. I will share the command on screen for a little bit longer, and then you can go into the deeper commands. Okay, very, very cool. So, okay, anyway, hopefully that proves to you guys this isn't fully canned, right? You can just change data in real time and have it show up in a packaged version of your game. Very, very cool stuff. Okay, last little bit, and just give me a second to check my notes here to make sure I've told you guys everything you need to know. Okay, so one last little bit that I kind of want to dive into. Let's look at these game feature actions a little bit. So just a tiny little bit of C++ in case the existing actions don't suit your needs. It's really easy to extend this system. So for our part, right, literally all those game feature actions that you see in the game are just game feature actions that you have full moddable access to. I don't have my full indices here, but it's probably not a big deal. They live in this base folder. It's in your source. As long as you have game features enabled, which it might be by default, you have access to this today, right? You can easily extend game feature action if you're not too afraid of C++, right? It has some basic lifecycle functions that you can overload to perform your actual logic, right? And then the data registry or data registry source, which we use more often, is already perfectly set up to just to work out of the box as you expect. If it doesn't suit your needs, or you need to do more complicated stuff with the asset registry or anything you can think of, once again, literally just write the class. These are structs. This isn't the class. Literally just write a U game feature action class that extends from U game feature action and override these virtual functions. And you're going to get the kind of behavior you want. Now, there's one thing that we didn't show off in this mod demo that you can do today that is super, super cool. And that is integration with the gameplay ability system. So for those who don't know, gameplay ability system is a generic system for creating any kind of gameplay ability that you can think of, like force choke, Biden blast, Kamehameha, whatever. It's a system that has its own architectural choices, which gives you multiplayer support out of the box. It gives you a lot of cool features out of the box. And it gives you a game feature action out of the box. So let's go. I might actually have this open. There we go. Game feature action add abilities. It lives in a slightly different place, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So it lives under here. Lyra game ability system or game features. Okay. I did not demo how you can do this because there is a far superior demo that you can access today if you want to do this. Okay, it's called the Ancient Game Sample or Valley of the Ancient. You can find it on Unreal Engine 5's official website, and you can download it today. It's the desert level with the dark runes and the echo character. In that demo, they not only add a ability for Echo where she charges a orb in her hand and throws it as you release your mouse key. It also links in animations that aren't part of the base game, so that Echo starts floating in midair, and there's some cloth physics, and there's beautiful, beautiful interaction. That could be made into a mod, just like how we've shown today, because it's already a game feature plugin. The reason I'm not showing you that full implementation is it's already done. You should definitely go check that out if you're trying to figure out how do I add abilities through mods. Great. That is pretty much it. The sample project, if you guys want to start doing this immediately, download Lyra, Unreal Engine 5, base website, download the Ancient Game Sample if you care about abilities. We are hopefully going to publish the documentation on how you can do this, just in case you don't want to keep referring back to this video. And we'll get that out for you guys. I'll signal boost it somewhere. And that's pretty much it. Go forth. Please make your games moddable. It makes them last several years beyond their general video game lifecycle. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and showing this off and putting this all together for everyone here. I personally love seeing this stuff. I think that there's not enough mod support just in the world. If I had my way, everything would be moddable. And some of my favorite times have been with mods. And funny enough, we had that comment earlier in the show from one of the folks in the audience where mods was kind of how they got their foot in the door, and it was very similar for me. It was like kind of late '90s, early aughts modding Unreal and Halo and all that sort of stuff is kind of where I got my start too. So I think there's not only a lot of value just from the industry perspective, but just also from the player perspective. Like some of my favorite memories were building a mod, not telling my friend what I was doing, and then just making him play it and just see what came of it and things like that. So, do more mod support. I agree. I echo that sentiment completely. Cool. Well, if you have any other last minute questions for the team here about supporting runtime mods in UE5, please put them into the comments now. Put in brackets question followed by your question, and we will gather them up. We've gone through a fair bit of them throughout the show, but we did have a few more already kind of in the backlog here. One of them is a two-part question, which is what was the biggest challenges, I would assume, with building these systems? And is there a minimum engine version you recommend for this?
So the biggest challenge is it seems pretty simple when we've put this all together for you, but when you're actually building the mod in the first place, you'll run into cooker errors, you'll run into project setting errors, you'll run into all kinds of weird use cases where sometimes the DLC boundary is not respected, and you'll get a weird crash. So just like debugging and getting this actually to work on a live demo was very, very complicated. But now that we've sort of explained how that works, hopefully it'll be easier for you guys in the future. You'll have to deal with the problems the first time, but hopefully this is a good guide to how you can get started. What was the second part?
If you knew if there being any minimum engine version for this, I would assume if you're using Lyra, it would be based off of that, but I would assume most of these features, again, yeah, depending on like if you're using like the game, any of the plugins that weren't there for earlier versions, obviously that would be a consideration. But
Definitely. So when the core of this is the game feature plugin, the data registry plugin, and the modular gameplay frameworks, go check those and see if they have a minimum engine version. I did this on 5.7. But I believe you could probably do it with any like near version as long as those plugins are supported. Dan is absolutely right.
awesome. Another question that we had here, we've gotten a few for like level design and things like that. Like what are the theoretical or practical limits to what can be modded using these or similar methods?
Okay, so one is you have to be careful with your shaders, right? When you bring in a new environment, there's going to be probably new shaders and materials that aren't cooked in the base game. So I haven't done a full performance test on if there are shader hitches, or if you need to bundle a PSO cache, but that's something that can definitely be solved. So first biggest constraint, performance, as I bring those level assets in. Second question, or can we do levels in general? Can we add completely new levels? Yes, you can. You can add in new levels, new meshes, new content. The only question is how performant is it going to be? But yeah, the biggest constraint, again, performance. So make sure you test it out. But when it's a mod, I think people will be a lot more forgiving of a hitch.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think a good point to kind of emphasize, right? If you're adding, we'll use the M4 as the example. That's a fairly small asset, depending on what you're doing, material, texture wise, and stuff like that. Probably wouldn't be too much of a hitch to load that in, but a level, depending on how many custom assets you have with that, that could end up being a much heavier thing to load at runtime, and you might have some considerations there for how you want to handle like PSO caching and other things like that.
Yeah, but you can definitely do it. And I'd even point you to there's a game feature action out of the box if you're using world partition, and we'll see if we can find it.
You want me to switch back to your screen, or?
I might be able to find it, but it's not world action based. There's actually a oh, dude, I think when I will try to find this because I know you guys are pretty like we love adding actors in and we don't love writing complicated C++, right? So I think there's something out of the box that you can use as you're trying to build out a level. And if you want to try to use this to build out a level and let us know if you run into any issues, you should definitely do that. Try it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get this loaded. I'll see if I can find that for you. It could be really cool.
No worries. Do you want me to throw another question at you while that loads, or
Sure.
am I distracting you? Because I know you're multitasking a lot here.
All good.
We have another question here, which is, how do I give the user a version of their game so that they can make mods, but without giving them access to all of the game's code, only the necessary tools to create a mod? Because right now, what I've seen is you've packaged the mod, but from your own project without compiling it.
Yes. Okay. This is where we're going next. This is brilliant. Very, very insightful. Right. So when we are cooking these DLCs, we are cooking based on a manifest of files that we expect. Right. Now we kind of have to hack the. I don't know the exact solution if we have to hack the cooker or how we'd go about the solution, but just like I said, right? We're an indie development company and we can't share all the assets because some of the assets come straight from Fab. So in the dialogue example, right, we can't share the entire source code. We want to strip out the source code from the project and just leave the data model behind. The question becomes, in that reduced set of code, does the plugin cook exactly the same way, right? I think that the answer is yes. I still need to do some testing and verification to prove it, but this is absolutely next on our list. So when we release our game, we are going to release this source code to you, and it's not going to have the full game source. So that problem is eventually going to be solved. If you want to start tackling that problem now, it would be like make a mod in Lyra, strip out the implementation, and go try the cook cycle. But yeah, as we do more research and publish our findings, we'll let you know how that exact problem can be solved.
Right. Right. Another question that we had here is, what other game types do you think work for these kinds of features, like such as these mods, open world, RPG, etc.? Do you think there's like a limit, really?
So, one brief aside quickly. This is so someone asked about like how do you build new worlds and levels and stuff. This game feature action, add world partition content out of the box. You can modify an open world in real time if you hack this or extend it or just use it out of the box. So please try this one. We didn't demo this today, but yeah, it shows that they were intending for levels to be modified in through this game feature framework. Okay, and now what was the other question?
Is what other game types do you feel work best for these kinds of mod features, such as open worlds, RPGs, etc., etc.?
It'll work for any type of game structure, even action game content. For me personally, the reason I love this is because of Skyrim and New Vegas, like the Bethesda classics. That's how I got into this whole modding ecosystem in the first place. So for me, the answer is RPGs. However, it'll literally work for any UE5 game.
Yeah. I would say the only consideration that you'd want to have is just making sure that if you're doing anything multiplayer centric, that the mods you are making work in that environment, because it's a lot easier to modify something on your own client versus something that has to reference servers and other things of that nature.
Actually,
oh,
you guys want some cool? Okay, Okay, there's something so cool that we can do with multiplayer. So how does Fortnite get you new guns without you restarting the editor? Like how do they do like drops in real time without you restarting your game? It's very similar to this under the hood. I can't prove it because I don't have Epic source code, but I searched my feelings. I know it to be true. Now let's I want to point you towards one more plugin for this multiplayer thing. It's called the Chunk Downloader plugin. Okay. I'm not going to go into this too much. You can look into it on your own. But essentially, right, Lyra is a multiplayer game, right? And if I do a mod if I mod a gun in on my machine or my instance, how is Shannon going to get it? Well, all I would have to do is use this Chunk Downloader plugin to transfer the M4 mod onto Shannon's machine. And then we'd both be shooting each other with entirely new guns in multiplayer. So we haven't demoed that, but please look into this if you love multiplayer and you want to hack it. Like this thing is amazing.
I'm glad you brought that up. We actually had someone in chat on YouTube early into the demo saying that this is giving them chunk plugin vibes from native 4 and 5.
Definitely.
Another question we had here is they are starting a project and thinking of it being an MMO light or at least co-op. How functional can mods be in this environment for an MMO? I feel like we kind of talked about this a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, very. The classic example is World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy. If you want to see a good implementation of mods in an MMO context, and you can obviously use the structures we've defined here can be client-based or server-based. So you can have like if I change my character, if I change my skin on my client, it might not show up to every single person in the game. You can get around that with the Chunk Downloader plugin. And so pretty much anything you see can be included. But if you're making an MMO light, you probably want the server to be the authority and you don't want them to change everything. You don't want them to hack in 1 million gold, for example.
Yeah, that's one of the fun challenges, especially when you do anything multiplayer. Giving them tools to affect things like cosmetics and things like that is totally fine, but it can get a little dicey if you start letting them get access to other things. And in some cases, it might be the goal, right? You might be able to be like, hey, well, part of the design goal is to let people kind of go nuts and have fun with it. If it fits your design philosophy, then great. But otherwise, you might be surprised what people will do if you let them. Another question we had here was, aside from releasing source code, a limited support is a thing. Is there an NDA or something that allows full access to external developers?
This is the beautiful hack. So we've thought about this quite a bit. So you normally, right, for like Arc, when they want to redistribute a large portion of like the modified UE5 editor, they have to get Epic sign-off to do that. But we get to avoid it using this strategy. And how do we get to avoid it? I told you that the base game is Lyra plus a few plugins, right? So all of the RPG stuff, the features that you saw in this demo, they're developed as a game feature plugin. So when I say, hey, I need to give you the source so you can modify the game, right? I only need to share a small plugin with you, and you download the sample Lyra game from the Unreal Engine site. And the fact that you have the Unreal Engine on your computer means that you must have signed Epic's NDA to get the engine in the first place. So now we're completely secured in development and in the modding community. So everybody's automatically under Epic NDA, and you know that because they were able to modify the game in the first place. So it helps avoid a lot of complicated legal matters and licensing issues that you don't want to deal with as an indie scale company. So use this pipeline. You don't have to think about all that complicated stuff generally.
Awesome. Awesome. If anybody else has any other questions, please put them in the chat now. We're running low on the questions here. I did have one just from my end. You've kind of alluded to it here, right? Like you developed this process and this tools for a reason. It sounds like there's something that you folks are working on that are, using similar tools and things like that. Was that something like walk me through this process? Like you're like, okay, I'm going to make a project. I have a game that I want to do. Did you know from the very beginning you're just like, hey, I want mods to be a part of this, and I'm going to build systems to make sure that that's a key part of the infrastructure of the engine, and then yes, no on that. What was the process like of starting that and being like, okay, I got to figure out how to make this work? Like, is it something that you kind of got working fairly quickly, or was there a lot of trial and error and building systems and undoing systems and rebuilding systems and that whole fun process?
So on the first question, I knew I wanted a game that supported mods because Fallout New Vegas is my favorite game of all time, and I've played it for more than a decade. And it's such a it is a it is objectively, like in the modern day, a bad game. It's not. It is not fun. It does not have modern mechanics at all. But I mod it so heavily that it plays almost like a modern game. And that's why I knew that we wanted a long life cycle for the project we're building here. And that's why I decided to make it like a very early feature as part of the thing. Um, Developing this out with Shannon was really, really difficult. It's again, it seems super simple as we do it on the show, and I'm sure you guys can easily wrap your head around it. But when this doesn't exist in the first place, and we're sort of bringing it into reality for all of you guys, figuring out the details and crawling through the UE5 forums and figuring out what people have tried before, what didn't work, what worked. That was several months process. But hey, we finally made it.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, right? Where like the starting of it can be a bit of a task, but the more that you can implement early on and the stronger the foundation, the less work you have to do later, right? In the long run. You're kind of front loading the work early, so that way the rest of it is simple.
Yeah, and hopefully, like if the entire community can, as we expand this, as we get the word out that you can now support any kind of mod in UE5, we're gonna build, because the development is done in UE5 itself. We're gonna build a stronger community of UE5 developers who are then going to be who are also going to be modders, and it's going to create a community for all of our games, as long as they're made in UE5. And so that it's just going to grow and grow and grow and scale, and it's going to have such positive effects on the community.
Yeah.
And as just as a small aside, do you see my screen?
Yeah, let me bring it up. It's visible.
Great. This is just the top page of Nexus mods, and it's literally just the top Skyrim mods that have been shown, right? Thanks to Shannon, we can do a version of Sky UI today, right? These are bug fixes, and we showed you fixing a bug, a little small little typo, right? Mod organizer is something that would be third party. Vortex can manage. That's managing the files inside your little pack thing here, right? You can create a third party thing to do that trivially. Vortex will support it out of the box. Adding new static meshes, easy, right? Trivial. That's the same as adding inner gun. This is the one top mod that we can't support yet. It requires like DLL linking. SKSE. So that's it. Someone asked a question about like C++ linking. If you wanted to dive into that, that's what this allows you to do. You know, world maps, user interfaces, changing the character menu, adding new like romance dialogue, adding new hairstyles. We demoed that today. The top page is literally accessible to you guys. So please, if you are making an RPG or any kind of game, and you want to know if it can have impact, right? This is 12.5 million people who have tried out, like overhauling dialogue, right? And you can do it too. So please incorporate it into your game. It's not too difficult, and it can have a huge impact.
Yeah. Yeah. There are games that have had lifespans for decades that have been supported or have been have only done so by having mod support, or at least the ability to mod. Maybe support isn't always directly there, but that ability can go really far in extending the enjoyment and the staying power of games, and it can lead to other games. Like there's so many games that exist right now that I'm sure folks have been playing that they weren't even aware. It's like, oh yeah, that started as like a Quake mod and then it became its own thing.
Arma, DayZ, Dota is a mod on Warcraft 3, which became a League of Legends, right? So
Yep.
yeah.
Are there any considerations with developing mods using different versions of UE? Like, so something built in 5.5, but packaged for a 5.7 game?
Oh, that the cooker is going to yell at you.
Right.
So when you try to cook the mod, if you try to cook it between versions, I have never tried that because I'm just going to assume it doesn't work. You can try it and it might work. I imagine the cooker will yell at you.
And that's a good point just in general. Like, if you have a question and you don't know the answer or having trouble finding the answer, try it. Right? You'll find out if it works or not.
Yeah, you could. So wait, I will say I did. Okay, so there is something slightly related. So can you guys do you see my screen?
Let me bring it back up. All right.
Okay, cool. So like I had to cook a bunch of release versions to make this game work. Each one is basically what would, it's what comes out if you download the game on Steam or Epic or whatever platform you get, right? So I noticed sometimes I cooked a mod for one version. I noticed an error, so I cooked a new version. And if we go to the cooker command, right, you can see that as I'm cooking a mod, it says based on release version X, whatever, whatever, right? One weird thing I noticed with this versioning thing is even if I cooked a mod for version 1.12, if the files, if we move to 1.13 and I drag in the 1.12 mod pack file, sometimes it just works. So that means like if the core data didn't change, even though the release version got bumped, you still have working mod files. But that is that I think that works by luck more than by that's a pattern you should follow. But it means that when people author mods for older versions and you move forward, sometimes the mods won't even need to be updated and they'll work out of the box. But updating the mod isn't so complicated. You just literally bump the release version in here.
Yeah, and this is a consideration we're saying specifically with UE engine versions, but this is a consideration for basically any game, right? Like you update a game gets updated, you'll find sometimes that mods no longer work, right? Because something in that update changed something in the back end that broke something, right? That's a very common thing. So yeah, I mean, in general, I would say it's best to use the version that you're trying to mod for. That's going to be the cleanest and safest way to tackle something like that. But I mean, it doesn't hurt to try, right? And see see if it yells at you or not. Awesome. Awesome. Well, that pretty much covers the questions that we had in the chat. Is there any other things that you folks wanted to talk about while we have you here? I'm sure there's plenty that we could talk about.
Yeah. Other than a call to action saying, please mod your games, and you can reach out to us at any time. Sid at anotherdimensiongames.com, Shannon at anotherdimensiongames.com. If we'd love to hear any issues you run into while trying to make these mods, any like novel approaches that solve some of the architectural gaps that we had today. We'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out and mod your games.
Agreed. I do have one final question for you. It's an interpretation of a kind of an age-long question we usually throw here at the end, which is if you could go back to the beginning of this process and give yourself one bit of advice or one piece of information or guidance or anything like that, or to someone else wanting to do something similar, what would you give? What piece of advice would you give?
Shannon, you can feel free to jump in if you have some advice. I'll think about it for a second.
We love throwing this hard one at the end without any warning, so you don't have any time to prepare.
I feel like just for game, because I joined the Sid was obviously, had he was developing the game, and me and some of the other team members joined later. It's intimidating, but like if you're jumping into this, you don't know modding or like any of this stuff. If any of this is lost on you, even don't be so hard on yourself. Like there's such a steep learning curve. You'll get there eventually. Just don't give up.
I completely agree. The way that someone phrased it to me that I think is perfect is you only fail when failure stops you from moving forward.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just part of the process. A very normal part of the process.
Exactly.
What about you, Sid?
If I could give myself a piece of advice, I'd go back and I'd tell myself the right settings to not have to not have to do trial and error a bunch of times. As for something a little more maybe inspiring, um, I I left big tech to do this. I would make that choice a million and one times every single time. Uh, Obviously, indie game development is a very difficult career, and sometimes it doesn't seem like it might seem like game development is frivolous or something that's simple from someone looking outside in. This is one of the most rewarding careers you could pursue. And I guess I'd tell myself to just start sooner because you can really bring your dreams to life. And this is an amazing technology for you to do it.
Yeah, I like that. Start it's very easy to be like, oh, I'd love to learn that eventually, or I'd love to do that eventually, or whatever. I'll throw myself under the bus a little bit here. I've always wanted to make my own game, and it always was one of those things. It's like, yeah, I'll get around to it eventually. Got into my mid-30s, and I'm like, well, I don't have very many eventuallys left at this point, so I should probably actually start doing it. So I did. I started developing my own project. Technically at the beginning of last year, but there was a good probably 6 month stint, maybe a little bit longer, where I just had to put it in the background for a little while. Work and life and stuff got in the way, so very natural thing. But yeah, I'm in the same boat where I'm like, man, I really wish that I would have done this like years ago because there's countless reasons, but like if I had started sooner, then I'd be further along, right? And I'd have something more that I can show at this point. Maybe someday we'll visit that. But yeah, I completely agree, and I think just to pair it back off of what Shannon said too, and that's been a big learning, obviously for forever, but specifically in my case, I have a history in environment art. I'm fairly competent on the art side, I think, but the programmatic side is not something I'm nearly as proficient in. And there has been a lot of learnings in that process of getting proficient in programmatic. And there's been many times where I'm just sitting there, you feel like you're just kind of banging your head into a wall. You're not getting anywhere with it. And it can be, demoralizing. You can be like, well, maybe I should just stop, right? Like I can't do this, whatever. That's why I echo. It's like, that's when you fail. When you let that stop you and you're no longer giving it a go, that's when you fail. Because every single time that happened to me, every single time that I felt like, maybe I should just, not do this anymore. I got through it, and then everything was great, and then I was able to make process, and things were good. But it can definitely be tough. It's not easy. These are incredibly incredibly complicated systems that are interdependent on so many countless variables and things like that. And there's just a lot to wrap your mind around, especially as you get more and more complicated with whatever the experience is that you're making. Like, I would argue that Pong is a complicated thing to program for someone new. And Pong is like a 0.01% of code for like some of these systems that we have in games now. So give yourself some grace. You definitely deserve it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you folks so much for coming on and talking about this and showing this off. A lot of love for you in the chat here. A lot of love for you from me selfishly, because I think this is awesome. And anybody supporting mods, I'm always going to be here for. So really appreciate you taking the time to come on and do this.
Great. Thanks for having us, Dan.
Of course, of course. That's going to wrap up today's Inside Unreal. Again, a huge thank you to our guests for today, and a huge thank you for you all for watching as well. The show wouldn't be what it is without you, your time, and your questions. And if any of you came partway through the stream and wanted to rewatch a section, no worries. We post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on demand on both our Twitch and YouTube channels at Unreal Engine. You can also keep up with the latest news, shoutouts, and other information on all of our socials at Unreal Engine. And if you haven't already, I've said it a few different times during this show, head over to the EDC, the Epic Developer Community, where we have our documentation, tutorials from both community and Epic staff alike, the forums, and so much more. We will not have a show next week, unfortunately. I will be traveling, but we will be back the following week and the weeks after with plenty more shows, and maybe even a couple bonus ones. I'm pulling some strings. We'll see what I can do, but we'll be back in the following week, back to our normal schedule. But again, huge thank you to you folks for coming on. Huge thank you to you all for watching, and we'll catch you in not next week, but the week after. All right, bye everybody.